Robert Fludd, also known as Robertus de Fluctibus, 17th of January 1574 to the 8th of September 1637, was a prominent English Paracelsian physician, merging science and the occult. He was born at Millgate House, Bursted, Kent. His father was Thomas Fludd, a high-ranking government official, Queen Elizabeth I's Treasurer for War in Europe, and a Member of Parliament. His mother was Elizabeth Andrews Fludd. His paternal arms can be traced to Rhyd Flarydd, whose name originates from Welsh meaning blood or red wolf. Thus he was descended from Cundedda Weglig ap Edern, King of Gwynedd. He studied at St John's College, Oxford, as a commoner in 1591, then a college with a strong focus on theology, graduating with a BA in 1597 and an MA in 1598. His years at St John's made a great impression upon him, and he remained at all times faithful and attached friend and member of the Church of England. Despite this, he was frequently accused of being an atheist or Catholic, and certainly he was interested in the religious beliefs of others and taught by Jesuits in the Pyrenees. Fludd was deeply convinced adherent of the medical and magical practice of the German doctor, surgeon and radical theologian Theophrastus Paracelsus von Hohenheim, although Fludd was somewhat more conservative than fellow Paracelsians. During Fludd's time at St John's College, the medical fellow in residence was Matthew Gwynn. Gwynn had previously produced a tract indicating that he was familiar with the Paracelsian model. After graduating from Christchurch, Fludd moved to London, settling in Fenchurch Street and making repeated attempts to enter the College of Physicians. He encountered problems with the college examiners, both because of his unconcealed contempt for traditional medical authorities. He'd adopted the views of Paracelsus, and because of his attitude to authority, especially those of Galen. After at least 6 failures, he was admitted in September 1609. Nevertheless, he became a prosperous London doctor, serving as the censor of the college 4 times, 1618, 1627, 1633 and 1634. In addition to established methods of diagnosis, Fludd used a patient's horoscope for such a purpose, as well as to anticipate critical days. He also participated in the inspection of London apothecaries in 1614 and helped to author the Pharmacopoeia Londinensis in 1618, a directory of standardised pharmaceutical preparations given by the London College of Physicians. Paradoxically, he became an established figure within the college, that he was included in the 17th century critiques of the college, including those by Nicholas Culpeper and Peter Coles. Another Paracelsian physician and friend to Robert Fludd was Michael Meyer. He explained the secrecy in his works entitled Silentium Post Clamores by maintaining that since ancient times colleges existed to perpetuate studies in medicine and science, and that such knowledge for its own protection was secretly passed from generation to generation through a system of initiation. Meyer is important in the life of Fludd for several reasons. One, he was dedicated to the religious and spiritual aspects of alchemy, as Fludd was, and he is sometimes credited with introducing the Rosicrucian order into England. It is also alleged that he initiated his friend Robert Fludd into the order. They apparently were of great influence to each other in their respective works concerning the spiritual revitalisation of science and medicine, as well as in their relationship to the Rosicrucians. In many respects, Fludd can be seen one of the last Renaissance men, providing a bridge to the early modern period. Much of Fludd's writings focused on the sympathies found in nature between man, the terrestrial earth and the divine. Whilst Paracelsian, Fludd's own theory on the origin of all things suggested that instead of tria prima, all species and all things stemmed from first dark chaos, then divine light, which acted upon the chaos, which finally brought forth the waters. The last element, also called the Spirit of the Lord, it is made up of passive matters and other substances, including all secondary elements and 4 qualities of the ancients. Is medical practice largely devoid of chemical remedies, but depended almost solely on prayer and the use of the name of Jesus on the model of the first apostles of Christ. This devotional medicine was supported by a theology derived from the secret and mystical teachings of Judaism, the Kabbalah, which Fludd employed in a Christianized form, derived from the ideas of German philosopher Johannes Reuchlin. His medical incantations, Fludd used the Hebrew form of the name of Jesus, which he claimed possessed immense magical potency. He equated Jesus Christ with the Kabbalistic angel Metatron, the heavenly form of the Jewish Messiah. He is also said to be the soul of the world, the anima mundi, pervading it throughout, or anthropos. Fludd states in Hogmann, Wisdom of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, is the same as the verbum, the word in the Christian Gospel of John, who is identified with Jesus Christ. The Christian word is the same as the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Alpha. The Christian Messiah is the most potent medicine for all human ills. The verbum, or Metatron, Christ Messiah, is a form of God himself, residing in the Son. The Tritarian division is important, providing a mystical framework for biology. The Fluddian theory concluded that Paracelsus' own conception of the 3 primary principles, sulphur, salt, mercury, eventually derived from chaos and light, interacting to create variations of the waters or spirit. In Fludd's medical theories, the operation of aerial nitre, or quintessence, in the human body was of critical importance to health. It's said to originate in the tabernacle of the aerial spirit, which was the sun. The essence of aerial nitrate was celestial light. It was breathed in by the lungs and separated from the air and dispersed the vital spirit throughout the body. In his short text, the Tracitus de Tritico, Tracita on wheat, which reappeared in Antimonia Amphithearum 1623, is also in the Philosophy Mosaica 1638. Fludd describes the distillation of aerial nitrate from wheat using the heat and light of the sun's own rays. Fludd claimed that this distilled spirit was the universal panacea, whose generative celestial fire had been drawn out by the sun. Fludd was thus heavily reliant on the scriptures. In the Bible, the number 3 represented the Principium Fororum, or the original form. Furthermore, it was the number of the Holy Trinity. Thus the number 3 formed the perfect body, paralleling the Trinity. This allowed man and earth to approach the infinity of God and created a universality in sympathy and composition between all things. The anima mundi suggests that man has a soul, and thus must the macrocosmos have a soul. This supreme intelligence is of an angelical nature God is all, and in all, and above all, that in him there are all things, and in his spirit, the word, all things consists. God is in everything that exists, seeing that from him, by him, and in him are all things. Fludd writes to Christians that all Christians are living stones, that they bear the same name and are the same significance as St. Peter. And thus all Christians are stones, members of the great Petra Catholica. It follows that no single man, not even St. Peter, can be said to be the foundation of the Catholic Church. As Christ lays hidden in the rock of Moses, as the spiritual body lies hidden in the natural body, so the words of the apostles are true. The letters killeth, but the spirit giveth life. The true cornerstone is Christ. The incarnation opened the way to knowledge of what the cornerstone is. All traditions and teachings are in vain and would persuade us that Cephas was this foundation. A God, having willed the tabernacle amongst mortal men, uses the same imagery to confirm its explanation as now given. Listen, saith the prophet, and you see the rock from which ye are hewn. Divine light remains a central theme throughout Fludd's writings and represents the active principle behind creation. He's considered Adam to be the divine animal, his mind a palace of light and a perfect work of God. The resurrection represents a return to this state of being before the fall. This informed the development of the world and the sun respectively. Fludd concluded from the reading of Psalm 19:4, in them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, that the Spirit of the Lord was contained literally within the sun, placing it central to Fludd's model of the macrocosm. As the sun was to the earth, so was the heart to mankind. The sun conveyed the spirit to the earth through its rays, which circulated in and about the earth, giving it life. Likewise, the blood of man carried the Spirit of the Lord, the same Spirit provided by the sun, and circulated through the body of man. This was an application of the sympathies and parallels provided to all of God's creation by Fludd's tripartite theory of matter. In all realms of creation there are beings, angels, the Emphrian world, stars, planets, demons, and the ethereal, and the elemental world of man, plants and minerals. All these beings are within a hierarchical structure and have within them a corresponding degree of light, or they are beings who serve the devil with their corresponding degree of darkness. The sun is the midpoint of these realms and is considered by Fludd to be a tabernacle of God. When one comprehends the midpoint, you may recognise instantly those who serve the light and those who serve the dark. However, the infallibility and purity of this recognition is only by the acceptance of the midpoint of the centre as their being, which reflects the tabernacle and leads them to embrace the Alpha and the Omega. In about 1630, barely 20 years after the publication by A.S. Forsius of the first hand-drawn colour circle, the first printed colour circle appeared in a work by Robert Fludd. His colour wheel theory was a total of 7 areas around its circumference with links with the Aristotelian theory. But Fludd distorts the Aristotelian line to join it back on itself, forming a circle. He places black and white next to each other with red opposite them. All 3 have the same status as the 4 other colours, which we know as green, blue, yellow and orange. Fludd takes the opposite view to Johannes Kepler in his writings and introduces 3 principles of the world: darkness, water and divine light, the latter bringing life to everything. Fludd's famous black square illustration is strictly speaking a rhombus. Each side is deliberately distorted. The blackness does not signify mortality and death, as Fludd, as for Fludd, this image represented the beginning of creation. Robert Fludd's religious devotion and mystical quest made him preoccupied with the creation myth as comprehended by man. Utrusque cosmi metaphysica physica ate technica historia and all, by Oppenheimer, published by Oppenheimer in Frankfurt, 1617 to 1624. Utrusque Cosmi is a 2-volume work packed with over 60 intricate engravings that I've used extensively throughout this vlog. The two worlds are those involved of the microcosm of human life on Earth and the macrocosm of the universe, which includes the spirit of the realm of the divine. The first was Tracitus Theologus Philophysus. It concerns life, death and resurrection, and essentially a mystical and alchemical account of the creation combined with Mosaical philosophy. Thus is alchemy being a personal alchemy, despite it now being popular to see this as originating with Jung. The Mosaical philosophy is linked with the mystical alchemical interpretation amongst Paracelsians of the time. Although he often refers to Hermes Trismegistus in his works. Our gold is not the gold of the vulgar, but the living gold, the very gold of God. This is a spiritual chemistry which purges by tears, sublimates by manners and virtues, decorates by sacramental graces, and makes even the putrid body and the vile ashes to become living, and makes the soul capable of contemplating the things of heaven and the angelic world. Thus in the application of the spiritual chemistry by which and through all power of resurrection. As a retelling of Genesis, it describes creation, the garden, Adam and the fall. It begins with the premise that God, the world, the light are the origin of universal life, and the devil the origin of death. As an alchemical interpretation, it deals with the separation as a chemical process, or high chemical virtue that affected the separation of one region to another. Fludd's philosophy is presented utris cosmi, maioris celestitas and minorinus, metaphysics, physica, ata technica, historia, the metaphysical, physical and the technical history of two worlds, namely the greater and the lesser, published in Germany between 1617 and 1621. In 1618, Fludd wrote De Musica Mundea, mundane music, which described his theories of music, including his mundane, also known as divine or celestial monochord. In this, Fludd offers another interpretation of the structure of the universe, contemplating his earlier alchemical visualizations, but expressed musically. He analysed what he claimed to be the musica mundana, the musical forms that pervade the structure universal creation, based on the musicology and mathematics of the ancient Greeks, particularly Pythagoras. In 1630, Fludd proposed many perpetual motion machines. People were trying to patent variations of Fludd machines in the 1870s. Fludd's machine worked by recirculation by means of a water wheel and an Archimedean screw. The device pumps the water back on its own supply tank. Other works included his defence of Rosicrucians, following the publications of manifestos in Germany and other European countries, where he had studied. If there was a Rosicrucian order, he almost certainly was not a member, but clearly inspired by the manifestos. Nevertheless, there may have been something of a Rosicrucian order in Britain, inspired by Francis Bacon's New Jerusalem. In his support for the Rosicrucians, which probably created the greatest controversies, Johannes Kepler was highly critical of Fludd, in particular his cosmology, seeing him as an occultist. It is clear that he was influenced by Hermes Trismegistus and the Neoplatonism, especially in his cosmology. He was also familiar with Kabbalism, which he incorporated the Bible into his philosophy, a reminiscent of how Ibn Arabi relies on Al-Qur'an. Fludd may well have been influenced by Sufi thought, or what was known of it in Britain at the time, as the mysterious Christian Rosenkreuz is said to have been influenced by Sufis in the Holy Lands, or more likely Yemen, if indeed he ever existed. But what impressed me the most about his philosophy was how he recognised the importance of divine light and how he related this to the cosmos. This has very strong parallels with my own experience and my love of Sharadwadi. I am less enamoured with his flights of fancy in creating hierarchies of spirits within the cosmos. For example, Lucifer has his own 9 orders and named princes: Beelzebub, Python, Belal, Asmodeus, Satan, Mererim, Abaddon, Astaroth, and Mammon. Fludd then looks to the cause of discord in creation. Although God in the Holy Trinity is the origin of concord, the devil, on the other hand, is the parent of discord. Thus the strife between concord and discord produces between light and darkness. From this discord into the heavenly music, the perfect perfection of spheres has come from the fear of death and the fall of Adam. All things being within a hierarchy and have within them a corresponding degree of light, or beings who serve the devil with the corresponding degrees of darkness. When the initiate comprehends the midpoint, he may recognise instantly those who serve the light and those who serve the darkness. However, the infallibility and purity of this recognition is only by the acceptance of the midpoint as the centre of the being, which reflects the tabernacle and leads them to embrace Alpha and Omega. Hence bad is taken for good, hence love for the world and vanity, hence the hatred of God the Creator. However, the pure soul can rise and be guided by rays of wisdom and discern the path of rectitude. The divine architect who forms the universe, man-made, equally perfect and complete, the image of his own greatness, the circles of existence has made complete. But then hierarchies and spirits and anthropomorphizing the devil is such a common preoccupation of man, including fellow Muslims whom I have so little in common with. Although I tend not to focus on external spirits and entities and see everything as being a part of our own consciousness, I do very much like his views on medicine.